elements can be classified into several groups based on their sources or based on their mobility in plant tissues and etc. So basically, we classify or divide all these elements into um, uh, apa ya um, uh, elements depend on its quantities. Okay, macronutrients. So macronutrients ada dua, primary macronutrients dengan secondary macronutrients. What the difference between primary and secondary? Primary, the quantities required by plant from 0.5 uh, 0.5% dan lebih daripada dia punya dry mass. And secondary macronutrients, usually if we do chemical analysis, it comprise between 0.1% to 0.1% to 0.4% of total plant biomass. For micronutrients, these nutrients, even though they are required in a minute amount compared to macronutrients, but their essentiality is comparable compared to macronutrients. The definitions or the fine line that differentiate between macronutrients and micronutrients are their amount or total percentage of this element in plant tissues. Macronutrients, their percentage in plant tissues is lower than 0.1%. Okay, so we have already discussed about the physiological functions of macronutrients and micronutrients. We already discussed about how these elements behave in soil, their cycles, their chemical forms of how plant absorbs these elements. And now we discuss move to beneficial elements. Okay, if you still remember what is essential elements, the definitions of essential elements, there are 4 characteristics required by all species of plant. It directly involved in plant physiological functions. The functions of element cannot be replaced by other elements. The deficiency of this element will show symptoms in plant. Okay, plant without this element, plant cannot complete its life cycles. But beneficial element, what is beneficial elements? Before we continue discuss about what are beneficial elements, these are the topics that will be discussed for today lecture. First topic, we will discuss beneficial element, the definitions of beneficials. What are they? There are several if you refer to a books, there are a lot of elements that regard as a plant beneficial element. But in this lecture, I will include 6 elements that being regarded as beneficial elements. Okay, and then we will also discuss the functions of this beneficial element in plant. What type of species of plant that require these elements? Okay, so without further ado, let us continue with our first topic, the definitions of beneficial element for plant nutrition. So, beneficial element, also known as potential micronutrients. Why? Because there are several micronutrients that initially regard as beneficial element, but when complete study have been done, these elements is now classified as essential elements. Okay, for example, nickel, copper, uh, molybdenum, okay, and manganese, and ions. All these elements initially is regarded as beneficial element because when scientists do a specific or do a certain experiments, for example, kita tambah elemen ions ataupun elemen copper dekat tumbuhan, kita nampak the developments are very optimum. And then when we exclude completely these elements, we found that plant cannot complete its life cycles, and these elements show essential essential elements characteristics. Okay, so daripada beneficial element, elemen-elemen ni didefinisikan semula sebagai essentials elements. So these beneficial elements, sometimes we call beneficial because it is not beneficial. Tapi kenapa kita regard dia sebagai beneficial? Sebab belum ada lagi kajian yang menyeluruh terhadap semua spesies. Okay, untuk kaji bagaimana elemen-elemen ni boleh mempengaruhi fisiologi tumbuhan. Okay, tapi kadang-kadang ada certain elements yang dah fully analysed, and we know that only certain plant require these elements. Okay, so nanti kita akan tengok elemen-elemen ni. Beneficial elements defined as elements that are not essential for all plant but may have beneficial effect for a particular taxa, okay, for a species or genus of plant. Okay, sebagai contoh, nanti kita tengok kalau kita bagi silicon for example, or to a gracious plant, dia punya resistant terhadap pertumbuhan semakin bertambah. Okay, so how this beneficial element can increase plant growth? They may influence growth directly or indirectly. Okay, so macam mana indirectly? By supplying this element to a certain species of plant, that species of plant become more resistant towards certain biotic or abiotic stress. Okay, so these are elements that being considered as beneficial element for plant. First, we have aluminums, silicon, sodiums, cobalt, and also seleniums. Of course, beneficial element for plant nutrition is not limited based on these 5 elements only. There are a lot of other elements that also being regarded as beneficial element. For example, vanadiums, apa lagi? Ada beberapa contoh lain. Tapi kita fokus pada 5 ini saja sebab 5 elements ni telah dikaji dengan sangat menyeluruh oleh saintis-saintis. And we can conclude these elements can enhance plant growth directly or indirectly. Okay, so tak ada persoalan kan? Kita baru beberapa slide saja. So let us continue with our second topic, functions of beneficial elements to plants. Okay, let us go to the first elements, which is silicon. So awak tahu silicon tu apa? Silicon exists in our earth abundantly, especially in our earth crust, because in our earth crust it comprise 25% of silicon, okay, in a form of silicate, okay, or in a form of silica. So silicon is mainly available to plant as monosylic acid. So kalau kita ingat mineral elements yang lain available for plant uptake in ionic form, but for silicon it available for plant uptake in monosylic acid. Okay, dia bukan dalam bentuk ion tapi dalam bentuk monosylic acid. Mono satu, silikon, okay, ada satu atom silikon saja. So in general, monocot show higher level of silicon accumulations compared to dicot. Silicon has been proven beneficial only in a member of Epitheciae, for example, hostel, Epitheciums, avens. Saya tak pasti common names of this plant apa. Okay, nanti awak boleh check. And also wheatland, okay, genus. Okay, for example, Oryza sativa. So what are the beneficial effect of silicon on plant? Okay, first, additions of silicon to a plant can inhibit plant pathogens. Okay, there are few mechanisms. There are certain mechanisms of how silicon can enhance plant resistance towards certain pathogen, fungal pathogens especially. Um, Apart from that, silicon can also enhance abiotic stress resistance. Okay, abiotic means stress that caused by environmental factor. Okay, kalau biotic from living organisms, so pathogens. Abiotic from environmental factor. So how silicon can enhance plant resistance towards pathogen infections? Uh, this is especially happens to Oryza sativa ataupun pokok padi. Okay, so if we apply silicon in the form of monosilic acid to Oryza sativa, this Oryza sativa will um, reinforce this silicon monomer into its cell wall. Okay, so the silicon will form a layer of shield. Okay, so it will reinforce, it will give extra mechanical protections to plant cells. Okay, so ini adalah the diagrams of uh, root epidermis of Oryza sativa. Okay, this is happen without silicon, without silica. What happens? There are certain species of pathogen fungal that will infect this Oryza sativa. Okay, bila fungus ni infect dekat pokok padi, dia akan jadi apa? Um, saya tak ingatlah nama dia. Tadi saya ingat, tiba saya lupa. Tapi pokok tu nanti akhirnya dia akan rebah, okay? Dia akan mati. So sebab apa? The fungus, how the mechanisms of fungal infections? The fungus, the myceliums will detect the presence of Oryza sativa roots in soil, okay, through its certain chemical exudate. Okay. So kita tahu pokok padi ataupun pokok-pokok apapun dia akan release carbon ataupun compound melalui akar. So certain compound ni akan dijadikan sebagai chemical signals oleh pathogenic fungal. When this pathogenic fungal detect this compound, they will divide rapidly. So the mycelia will intercept with Oryza sativa roots. Okay. Bila fungal ni dia dah jumpa akar pokok ni, apa yang berlaku? Fungus ni will secrete hydrolytic enzyme that will solubilize this cell membrane and membrane plasma pokok padi ni. Okay, and then dia punya mycelia akan penetrate and they will absorb nutrients from pokok padi ni. Apa yang berlaku? Pokok padi tu tadi akan sakit dan akhirnya mati. Okay, itu adalah pokok padi bila kita tak supply dengan silika. Okay. Ini pula adalah Oryza sativa or paddy plant that supply with silicon. What happens? This Oryza sativa will absorb this silicon as a monosilic acid, and the silicon absorbed by this plant will reinforce in cell wall. Okay, so the silica will make a layer of protections at the outer side of cell wall. So dia serve macam as a shield, okay, sebagai pelindung pada cells ni daripada fungi. So fungi ni bila dia hasilkan hydrolytic enzymes, these hydrolytic enzymes cannot solubilize the silica layer at outer root cells ni tadi, root tissues ni tadi. Okay, so this pathogenic fungal dia tak boleh infect pokok padi ni tadi. Okay, so faham ya? Apart from that, silicon also can act as a chemical signal in triggering natural defense response in plant. Okay, for example, ini adalah contoh. Bermula, this plant will absorb silicon as a monosylic acid. Okay, so the absorbed silicon will be deposited in a plant tissues as a phytolate. Okay, so um, kalau kita observe melalui microscope electrons, the silicon will be deposited as a amorphous phytolate. Okay, kita panggil dia ada macam enapan dekat sel tumbuhan ni dalam bentuk amorphous, tak ada bentuk yang sekata, tak ada bentuk-bentuk yang tertentu. Okay, so the deposited of silicon dekat plant tissues ni kita panggil phytolate. Okay, apa fungsi silikon yang deposit at plant tissues atau kita panggil phytolate ni? So when plant being attacked by herbivore especially, okay, for example, we have a larvae here. So when the larvae eat the plant leaf, okay, ataupun dia cause mechanical damage on the plant tissues, what happen? Plant will release HIPV or herbivore induced plant volatile. Okay. So apa fungsi HIPV ni ataupun herbivore induced plant volatiles ni? This HIPV dia adalah volatile compound, dia akan release to atmosphere, to our air. So it will attract the enemy ataupun insect lain yang prey on this larvae. Okay, so insect ni dia akan detect where the larva presents based on the HIPV released by the plants. Okay, kalau salah satu contoh kalau macam mana HIPV ni boleh menarik insect lain, kalau awak ada pokok kurkubit, okay, ataupun pokok lemons. Okay. Kurkubit adalah plant species macam pumpkins, lemons, cucumber. Okay. Dia ada satu spesies kumbang yang berwarna coklat. Okay. Kumbang ni dia tak akan makan pokok-pokok lain, dia akan makan pokok kurkubit saja. So macam mana kumbang ni boleh tahu dekat sesuatu area tu ada pokok kurkubit? So kalau kita macam cantas pokok labu ni ataupun pokok melons ni, dia akan hasilkan volatile compound. Okay. So this volatile compound will serve as a chemical signal to attract certain insect ataupun pest ataupun predator. Tapi untuk case ni, the productions of HIPV is enhanced when we supply the plant with silicon. Okay, so when the concentration or the amount of HIPV released into atmosphere increase, the chances of this HIPV molecule to attract the predator of this larva increase. Okay, so macam bermula, kalau larva ni tak makan daun ni, plant tak akan release this HIPV, herbivore induced plant volatiles. Bila dia makan saja, daun-daun ni akan release volatile compound ni. Okay, so volatile compound ni tujuan dia apa? Untuk menarik a predator, insect. So this insect will be prey on this larva. Okay, so secara tak langsung silikon ni dia akan enhance the defense systems of the plants. Okay, apart from that, silicon also will stimulating the activity of enzymes such as chitinase and peroxidase. Okay, so apa itu enzymes chitinase? Chitinase is enzymes that will digest or solubilize chitins. Okay, so kat mana kita akan jumpa chitins ni? Plant dia tak ada chitins. yang banyak chitins adalah insects or herbivore, kumbang yang feed on plant leaf ni tadi. Okay, so dekat serangga, chitins ni berfungsi sebagai exoskeletons of the insects. When the insects, okay, for example, feed on the plant leaf, plant will release this chitinase. So the chitinase will cause injured, okay, kepada pest ni tadi. So bila dia dah injured, dia tak akan feed on the plants ni tadi. Okay. Contoh-contoh itu contoh volatile compound yang bertindak balas secara langsung terhadap herbivore. Kalau yang ini dia tindak balasnya secara tidak langsung sebab dia tarik perhatian predator. Okay. So kalau macam contoh-contoh lain, bawang. Okay. Awak pernah potong bawang tak? So kalau awak potong bawang, apa jadi? Mata awak akan berair. Okay. Itu adalah salah satu contoh defense mechanisms of plant to avoid predatory effect, predatory bukan predatory, herbivory pest. Okay. So kalau untuk bawang, kalau kita supply more sulfur, dia akan hasilkan volatile sulfuric acid itu lebih kuat, okay, lebih pedih mata awak. Okay. Kalau macam bawang Holland yang dia punya sulfur concentrations tak terlampau tinggi, bila awak potong, mata awak tak terlampau pedih. Okay. So apart from chitinase, silicon also can stimulate synthesis peroxidases enzymes. Okay, so this peroxidases enzyme basically will attack bacteria or virus. Okay, so peroxidase adalah oxidant agents. Okay, dia akan attack plasma membranes of organisms lain. So biasanya bakteria lah. So bila peroxidase ni attack cell membrane of bacteria, dia akan membunuh bakteria itu lagi. Okay. Untuk yang chitinase, apart from insect, chitinase also contains in mycelia structure. Okay. So matches mycelia will be covered by chitinase. So when pathogenic fungal, for especially penetrate or invade into plant root tissues, plant will excrete chitinase as a response mechanisms to defend itself from the invasions of pathogenic fungal. Okay. Chitinase ni tadi dia akan solubilize chitins ataupun mycelia fungus ni tadi. So fungal ni tadi tak bolehlah infect plants. Okay. Apart from that, silicon also will increase the productions of antimicrobial compound and systemic stress signals. Okay. So example of antimicrobial compound adalah peroxidases tadi. Okay. So when bacteria attack plant dia ada memory system macam tubuh badan manusia. Okay. Tubuh badan manusia, kita punya defense systems have a memory to remember a certain pathogens. Okay. For example, in our body, we have immunoglobulin A, immunoglobulins B, tak ada B, immunoglobulins G, I, and A. Okay. So these all immunoglobulin has a specific functions in our body. Okay. For example, immunoglobulin A serve as a detection, immunoglobulin E serve as a memory. Okay. So macam tumbuhan juga, dia punya memory bukan immunoglobulins tapi salicylic acids. Okay. So when plant being attacked by pathogens, it will detect the presence of pathogens directly. Okay. Kita panggil partikel-partikel yang ada dekat pathogens ni, sebab kita tahu dekat membrane of bacteria, there are certain proteins. Okay, so plant can detect the presence of certain pathogenic bacteria by detecting these proteins. Okay, um, plant also can detect the presence of bacterial pathogens by the compound produced by the bacteria. Okay, for example, a certain bacteria will produce enzyme that enters the plasma membrane and cell wall of the plants, okay, before it can invade or penetrate into plant tissues. So plant will detect this compound as a foreign substance, okay, from pathogens. So when plant detect the presence of pathogens, it will produce reactive oxygen series, okay, ROS. So what happened? This ROS will attack the bacteria, especially the cell membrane and cell wall of the bacteria, and these reactions will kill the bacteria. Okay. Apart from that, plant will produce a certain compound. Okay. So this compound will be reinforced in cell wall to give extra mechanical protections. Okay, so the punya cell wall um, semakin kukuh. So tak bolehlah enzim daripada bacterial pathogen ni solubilize untuk sebagai pathway for penetrations into plant tissues. Okay. Um, bila plant dah memula dihasilkan reactive oxygen series ataupun peroxidase, and then dihasilkan compound to reinforce the cell wall, plant juga akan hasilkan salicylic acid. Okay, so this salicylic acid serve as a chemical signal to all plant organs to enhance their defense systems because their invader has been detected in certain plant organ. Okay, sebagai contoh, uh, bacteria pathogen tu dia attack dekat bahagian daun yang atas. Okay, so bahagian daun ni dia akan hasilkan salicylic acid. So the salicylic acid will be transported to all plant organ. Okay, so each plant tissues that receive this salicylic acid, dia akan enhance dia punya defense system. Okay. Uh, Selain daripada tu, so this salicylic acid required silicon. Okay, silicon dia akan enhance the production of this salicylic acid. Apart from that, tadi awak buat lab dekat GNC, kadang-kadang awak nampak the necrotic, okay, ada tompok-tompok coklat dekat daun, okay, sign as a necrotic lesions on plant leaf. Okay. Tadi selain daripada pokok ataupun tisu yang being attacked by pathogens, dihasilkan ROS, dihasilkan compound that can increase the cell wall strength, dihasilkan salicylic acid. Bahagian tisu tumbuhan yang being attacked by these pathogens will program a cell death, okay, necrotic lesions. Sebab apa? Bila dia hasilkan necrotic lesions ni, sel tumbuhan tu dan pathogen yang ada dalam sel tu akan mati. So dia dapat halang pathogen tu daripada merebak ke bahagian-bahagian pokok yang lain. Okay. Yang tadi selain daripada itu, silicon also can modify or increase the productions of HIPV. Itu tadi saya dah terangkan. Okay. Silicon also can alleviate or increase heavy metal toxicity symptoms. Okay, this is especially dekat pokok padi tadilah, pokok-pokok poke ataupun gracious plant. Okay. So macam mana silicon can alleviate heavy metal toxicity symptoms in plant? Okay. There are different type of soil available, especially dekat mana-mana lah, dekat negara kita pun ada berbagai-bagai jenis tanah. Salah satu jenis tanah yang ada dekat negara kita adalah kita panggil acid sulfate soil. Okay. So this acid sulfate soil are characterized by very low pH. Okay, dia punya pH 3 ataupun 4 somethings. Okay, sebab apa acid sulfate soil ni dia punya pH sangat rendah ataupun very acidic? Because it contains very high ions and also aluminiums. So aluminium ions, especially aluminium 3 plus, has a very high tendency to hydrolyze the water molecules. Okay, when um, ions or aluminiums has hydrolyzed water molecules, it will separate water molecules into hydrogen ions and also OH ion. The ion okay, Fe 3 plus or Fe 2 plus ataupun aluminium 2 plus will bind with hydroxy ion OH ion and release hydrogen ion to soil solutions. Okay, so what happen? Semakin lama tanah tu akan menjadi acidify. Okay, tanah tu menjadi berasid. Kebanyakan acid sulfate soil dekat Malaysia ni ditanam dengan padi. Okay, sebab apa? Bila acid sulfate soil ditanam dengan padi, dia akan menghalang oxidations of aluminiums and ions. Okay, bila aluminiums dan ions tu tak teroxidize, dia tak release ke persekitaran ataupun to soil solutions. Okay, bila aluminium ataupun ions tu tak release ke soil solutions, tak adalah tendensi untuk aluminium ataupun ions to hydrolyze water molecules. Jadi acidifications boleh dihalang. However, in padi agronomic practice, farmer will constantly flood the soil with water, and then at certain stages, especially bila dia nak harvest padi tu, dia akan keringkan kawasan padi tu. Okay, so this process will induce oxidations of aluminiums and ions. Okay, so bila aluminiums dengan ions atau ferrum tadi dah teroxidize, dia akan menghasilkan acidifications of soil. Okay, so bila dah acidifications of soil tu berlaku, bila kita tanam padi untuk cycle yang seterusnya, padi akan mati. Sebab apa? Tanah tu mempunyai asid yang tinggi. Salah satu agronomic practice to tackle this problem is by liming. Okay, so bila kita apply carbonate, kita boleh stabilize the pH, and apart from that, we supply the oryza sativa with silicon. Okay, why? When we supply the oryza sativa with silicon, macam saya cakap tadi, the silicon will be absorbed by this plant, and the silicon will be reinforced at the cell wall of the plant. So it become a mechanical protections to plant cell. So bila silikon sudah menghasilkan satu layer protections, walaupun tanah tu beracids, the hydrogen ions dia tak dapat attacks lah cell membranes. Okay, so the resistance of padi yang tanam dekat acid sulfate soil ni meningkat. Okay, so that's the mechanisms of how silicon can enhance heavy metal toxicity symptoms, especially in oryza sativa. Apart from that, silicon also will prevent salt and other nutrients imbalance. Okay, it also can increase drought, high, low temperature and UV radiations. Okay, so dia punya mechanisms of how this silicon can enhance the abiotic resistance of plant adalah dia jadi satu protections. Okay, dia akan hasilkan layer tu selain daripada dia protect from pathogenic fungal attack ataupun dia prevents daripada tanah yang berasid, dia juga protect plant daripada drop ataupun suhu yang terlampau tinggi ataupun UV radiations. Okay, macam mana this silicon can enhance the drought resistance? The silicon layer, okay, dia boleh simpan molekul air dalam tu. Okay, awak bayangkan ada sel, lepas tu ada lapisan silikon. Okay, so the silikon, lapisan silikon tu dia juga jadi macam sponge, boleh absorb the water molecule, so that plant dia boleh resistant toward not only drought stress tapi heat stress. Okay, so dia macam protections lah. That's how silicon can enhance plant growth directly or indirectly, okay, especially from biotics and also abiotic stress. Okay, so next beneficial element is sodiums. Okay, so sodiums biasanya can be uptake by plant in the form of Na plus, sodium ion. So what is the functions of sodiums in plant? So there are certain species plant that can absorb high concentrations of sodiums. So this kind of plant we call halophyte plant. Okay, halophyte plants, plant that can resist toward high concentrations of sodiums. So this plant required sodiums to have a better protections toward abiotic stress. Okay, apart from that, sodiums also is required for CM or C4 plant. Okay, kita ada C4 dengan CM, dia ada berbeza. Okay, tapi ini adalah apa, selain C4 kita ada C3. Okay, tapi untuk yang plant yang dia punya fotosintesis dia ikut C4 sebagai contoh pokok nanas, dia perlukan lebih sodium. Okay, sebab apa? Sodium tu dia boleh menggantikan fungsi potassium. Okay, nanti kita tengok. Sodium ion is chemically similar to potassium and likely enter plant via non-selective cation transporter. Okay, particularly potassium channels. Okay, so these halophyte plants, plant that can absorb high concentrations of sodiums, will absorb sodiums melalui potassium channels. Okay, in certain halophyte, sodium is accumulated to high levels in the vacuoles, contributing substantially to plant osmotic potentials. This allows the plants to take up water from salty or dry soils which have low water potentials. Okay. This is how sodium can enhance abiotic resistance of plant. Okay, especially plant live in kawasan pantai dan juga plant that live in deserts. Okay, where fresh water ataupun soil solutions dekat kawasan ni very limited. Okay, dekat kawasan padang, pasir dan juga kawasan pantai. Okay, kawasan pantai walaupun banyak air tapi air itu dipenuhi dengan sodium. Okay, so this halophyte plant will absorb high concentrations of sodium. Okay, so what happened? Plant tissue, when it absorbs a lot of sodium ion, the water potentials will become lower or drops. Okay, so the reductions water potentials will induce the movement of water from higher potentials to lower potentials. Okay, so plant tu tadi bila dia absorbs banyak sodium, dia akan menyebabkan water potentials dekat dalam plant tissues tu menurun. Okay, bila water potential dah menurun, air akan masuk. Okay, because water will move from higher water potential to lower water potentials. So this is the mechanisms of how plant that live in dekat kawasan pantai ataupun dekat kawasan gurun dapat can absorb more water, okay, by lowering the water potential in their tissue by absorb extra sodium ion. Okay. Apart from that, C4 or cruacin acid plant, okay, ataupun C4 plant, okay, dia juga perlukan sodium ion. Okay. So kalau awak masih ingat, apa beza C4 plant dengan C3 plant? Apa beza dia? Iklimah?
Saya tak ingat.
Tak ingat? Okay. C4 plant, dia punya stoma dia akan tertutup waktu siang hari. Okay, sebab apa? Dia nak elakkan over transpirations. Over, kalau dia buka saja, air tu akan hilang lah. So, plant tu akan kekurangan air. So, dia waktu siang akan tutup stoma. Bila plant tutup stoma waktu matahari siang, dia tak dapatlah nak menghasilkan sugar. Okay, sebab photosynthesis perlu carbon dioxide. And then plant absorb the carbon dioxide through stomata. Okay, so this plant will open their stomata at night. Okay, and then the carbon dioxide will diffuse into their cell at night. And then the carbon dioxide will be converted into malic acid. Okay? And then malic acid will be stored in vacuole. Okay, so bila ada photosynthesis, the malic acid will be converted again into carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide akan digunakan untuk photosynthesis process. Okay, tapi untuk berbeza untuk C3 plant, C3 plant dia akan stomata dia tetap terbuka waktu siang, so carbon dioxide boleh masuk, and then carbon dioxide dia akan terus masuk photosynthesis cycle dan hasilkan sugar. Okay, tapi C4 plant dia carbon dioxide tak terus masuk ke photosynthesis process, dia di convert to malic acid dulu. Okay, in C4 plant or CM plant, the sodium is needed for regenerations of phosphoenol pyruvate from pyruvate. Okay, so sebab tu dia perlukan lebih sodium sebanding C3 plants. Okay, so itu untuk sodium. We move to cobalt. Cobalt is not very abundant and its concentrations range between 15 to 25 part per million or milligrams per liter in soil. And the concentrations is around 0.04 more lower in natural water. The concentrations in plant is typically range between 0.1 to 10 ppm on a dry weight basis. So plant take cobalt as a cobalt ions, okay, CO2 plus. So what is the functions of cobalt in plant? Saya lupa include spesies plant apa yang perlukan cobalt ni. Saya nanti rujuk balik. Saya include dalam lecture notes saya. So in certain species of plant, we found that additions of cobalt will delay leaf senescence. Okay. Apart from that, cobalt will increase the plant drought resistance. Okay. And then certain species of plant, especially the herbaceous plant, when we supply this type of plant with cobalt, they will produce or synthesis higher amount of alkaloid. Okay, so kalau awak ambil phytochemistry, we know that biasanya alkaloid ni dia digunakan untuk defense mechanisms. Okay, biasanya plant yang banyak alkaloid di sini dia rasa pahit. Okay, so kita boleh gunakan sebagai traditional medicines to treat a certain disease, okay, infections ataupun disease. A plant that supplemented with cobalt also will increase the vast life, okay. Ini especially untuk keratan bunga, okay, macam pokok orchid ataupun pokok-pokok bunga rose. Biasanya dekat dia punya stem tu, dia tempat dipotong, bila dipotong stem tu dia akan uh, rendam dalam larutan air. Tapi kalau larutan air tu kita tambah cobalt, we will found that the vast life, okay, of the plants will be prolonged. Dia akan lebih lama lagi. Apart from that, cobalt also is essential for leguminous plant, pokok-pokok kacang ataupun pokok-pokok yang boleh establish symbiotic interactions with rhizobiums ataupun nitrogen fixing bacteria. Okay. The senescence in lettuce can be retarded by cobalt. Okay, so kita tahu lettuce atau pokok sayur-sayur ni kita perlu, especially lah untuk industri, kita akan ekspor. Okay, kalau awak tengok lettuce yang ada dekat pasaran kita tu kadang-kadang bukan daripada Cameron Highlands, okay, kadang-kadang daripada China. Okay. Kalau kita tanam lettuce, okay, for example kita ada ladang dekat Cameron Highlands, dan kita nak import import export sayur ni ke negara lain, ke Taiwan ataupun Singapore, it will takes time. Okay. Kalau kita dapat rencatkan, we can retard the senescence of leaf, okay, pokok tu daripada jadi warna kuning, it will increase the quality atau it can preserve the quality of the vegetable need to be export ke luar negara. Okay, so kalau kita awak tanam sayur-sayur jenis lettuce ni, kalau kita supply with cobalt, dia punya masa untuk dia jadi layu tu lama. Okay, so kita dapat jagalah dia punya kesegaran, dia punya quality ni. Okay. Apart from that, cobalt can also increase the drought resistance. So the pre-sowing treatment of seed with cobalt nitrate will increase the drought resistance of horseshoe chestnut. Okay, so saya tak tahu, saya tak pasti pokok ataupun jenis apa horse chestnut ni. Okay, so kita boleh gunakan we have different treatments to enhance the germination rate of seed and increase the seed resistance toward abiotic stress. Okay, so proses ni kita panggil priming, seed priming. Okay, apa itu seed priming? Kita treat, kita rawat biji benih tu with certain chemical, certain procedure or certain beneficial microorganisms so that the germinations of the seeds can be enhanced. Okay, for example, there are few methods for seed priming. Example, pokok bukan pokok kelapa sawit, biji benih kelapa sawit. Okay, kalau if you collect biji benih kelapa sawit daripada buah kelapa sawit and then awak tanam dekat tanah, dia akan ambil masa berbulan hingga 1 tahun untuk germinate. Okay, bayangkan awak tunggu 1 tahun untuk pokok tu germinate. Okay, so dia ambil masa yang lama. So how we can prime this seed and increase the seed germinations? Kalau untuk kelapa sawit, kita gunakan heat treatment. Kita letak biji kelapa sawit tu dalam oven pada suhu 50 darjah Celsius selama 3 minggu. Lepas tu bila kita rendam dengan air, dalam masa 2 minggu saja biji benih kelapa sawit tu dia akan tumbuh. Berbanding kalau kita terus tanam dalam cuba cambahkan dalam tanah, dia ambil masa berbulan-bulan. Okay. Apart from that, we can prime the seeds with beneficial microorganisms. Okay, there are certain bacteria that can produce plant hormone Okay, for example, certain beneficial microbe can produce indole acetic acids, a type of oxygen hormone, and a certain species of beneficial microbe can produce gibberellic acids. Okay, we know that um, for seed to initiate germinations, plant need to absorb water. Okay, so the seeds will absorb water, and then the water will activate the amylase and gibberellic acid that initially contains uh, in seed. Okay, tapi bila kita uh, priming ataupun kita rawat biji benih ni guna mikrob yang menghasilkan gibberellic acid, uh, GA ni, dia punya germination rate lebih cepat. Okay, for example, a certain species of plant require a month, a few weeks to germinate. But when we treat with gibberellic acid, dia akan germinate dalam masa beberapa hari. Okay, itu adalah priming. Mula kita ada physical priming, kita ada bioprimings gunakan microbes, and we also have a chemical primings. We use certain chemical. Okay, so salah satunya kita gunakan cobalt. Okay, so when we treat uh, seed ni tadi dengan menggunakan cobalt, okay, uh, the seedling produce will have high resistance to drought stress. Okay, so kalau macam yang biopriming gunakan microorganisms tadi, kita kalau gunakan microbes yang menghasilkan gibberellic acids, dia punya germination rate akan lebih tinggi. Ada juga microorganisms yang menghasilkan indole acetic acid. Bila kita treat the seed with indole acetic acid produced by these microbes, we will find that the seedling produce will have a better resistance toward drought stress. Okay, so same goes to seed that pre-treat with cobalt. Okay, so dia bukan semua jenis tumbuhan lah yang akan menghasilkan positive effect ni. Certain tumbuhan saja. Okay, in this case, kalau kita gunakan cobalt, dia sesuai untuk horse chestnut. Okay, bila kita tanam horse chestnut yang dah dirawat dengan cobalt ni, kita akan dapati pokok horse chestnut ni dia ada better resistance toward drought stress. Okay, apart from that, cobalt will also increase the alkaloid accumulations. Okay, so this is especially beneficial towards herbaceous plant, okay, ataupun ubat-ubatan herba yang kita gunakan untuk traditional plant, traditional medicines. Okay, plant can produce a wide range of secondary metabolite. Okay, for example, it can produce terpenes, apa lagi, flavonoid. It also can produce alkaloid. Okay, so alkaloid have a wide functions in plant physiology. Okay, alkaloid ni dia ada berbagai-bagai fungsi dalam tumbuhan. Salah satunya, it is used to sebagai apa? Anti-microbes in plants. Okay, so kita tahu microbes ni ada beneficial microbes, ada pathogenic microbes. So how plant defend itself from pathogenic microbe, ada berbagai-bagai cara. Okay, salah satu caranya adalah dengan menghasilkan alkaloid. Okay, so when plant increase its accumulations, alkaloid accumulations, it will have a better resistance toward certain pathogenic bacteria. Okay, so selain itu, this herbaceous plant can be used as a traditional medical, okay, medical treatments. Kita gunakan pokok-pokok herba ni sebagai perubatan tradisional. Okay, salah satunya adalah untuk merawat jangkitan. Okay. Sebagai contoh, kadang-kadang kita boleh kena fungal infections juga. Okay. Macam ada tertentu boleh kena kayap ataupun panau. Okay. Kalau panau tu adalah daripada fungal infections. So fungal or microbial infections can be treated with a certain herbaceous plant, okay, especially plant that contains very high alkaloid. Okay, sebagai contoh, pokok-pokok yang ada alkaloid tinggi ni, pokok-pokok yang berasa pahit. Okay, tak semestinya. Okay, sebab kadang-kadang rasa pahit daripada tumbuhan ni disebabkan daripada kompon yang lain. Sebagai contoh, daripada kalau kopi daripada caffeines, kalau teh dia rasa pahit tu sebab daripada tannin. Contoh-contoh pokok ubatan herba adalah patawali, okey, pokok patawali. Okey, bukan bakawali, patawali. Dekat JNC ada. Pokok patawali ni kalau awak pegang, tangan awak gesel dekat batang pokok patawali ni, lepas awak rasa ataupun awak makan nasi, nasi tu akan rasa pahit. Okay, sebab apa? Pokok patawali ni contains very high concentrations of alkaloid. Okay. In traditional, in our Malay culture, this pokok patawali can be used as a fungal infection treatments ataupun bacterial infection treatments. Kadang-kadang kulit kita ada kena jangkitan kan, gatal ataupun kena fungal panau kan. So salah satu cara ubat dia adalah gunakan getah patawali ni. Kita sapukan dekat infections tadi, dia akan boleh bunuh fungal pathogens tadi. Okay. Apart from that, cobalt also can enhance atau increase the waste life. Okay, ini adalah untuk horticulture industry. So, kita ada pokok chrysanthemum, ada marigold rose yang digunakan ataupun diimport ke luar negara kadang-kadang. Okay. So the transportations of these horticultural plants will take sometimes a few days. Okay, so we need to preserve these flower or horticultural plants untuk this sentiasa kekal fresh. Okay, so macam mana? Salah satunya kita sembuh dengan larutan kobalt ni. Okay, dia akan tahan lebih lama. Okay. Apart from that, cobalt also required by a leguminous plant. Okay, apa itu leguminous plant? Leguminous plant adalah pokok-pokok kekacang. Kalau awak nak tengok pokok legumes ni, paling senang awak pergi kalau balik ke selatan lah daripada Kuantan sini, awak lalu Muazzam, ada ladang kelapa sawit, awak akan nampak pokok kelapa sawit yang muda lagi tu, dia ditanam juga celah-celah dia pokok legumes ni sebagai cover crops. Okay. Mokuna species legume plants ni. Okay. So what is the uniques of these legume plants? These legume plants can perform symbiotic interactions with rhizobiums. Okay. Rhizobiums, apa itu rhizobiums? Rhizobiums derive from a Greek word. Rhizo mean root, biomes mean living organisms. Okay, so basically rhizobiums are bacteria that live in root rhizosphere of plant. Okay, so these rhizobiums can establish symbiotic interactions with legumes. Okay, dia berkawan. Okay, bakteria ni dia berkawan dengan pokok legumes. Dia bukan setakat berkawan, dia juga berdagang. Dia trade to each other. Okay, apa maksud dia berdagang ataupun bertukar-tukar barang antara satu sama lain ni? Rhizobiums will fix the atmospheric nitrogens. Okay, and then this atmospheric nitrogens will be converted from nitrogen gas into ammonium. Okay, so the rhizobiums will transfer this ammonium to the plants as a plant nutrition. Okay. In return, the plant will give these rhizobiums fixed carbon in the form of glucose or carbohydrate for their pada rhizobium nutritions. Okay, so dia punya interaction sangat kompleks. Okay, and we found that when we supply cobalt to the leguminous plant, the symbiotic interactions with rhizobiums can be enhanced. Okay, macam mana mekanisme dia saya pun tak berapa pasti. Okay, saintis pun tak berapa pasti, cuma yang kita nampak dia punya mekanisme, molecular effect tu kita tak tahu. Yang kita nampak bila kita apply cobalt, dia punya mekanisme akan, dia punya symbiotic interactions tu akan bertambah. Okay, so how this leguminous plant can interact or communicate with rhizobiums. Okay, so first, the leguminous plant will release root exudates. Okay, very specific compound. Okay, they will secrete a flavonoid. Okay, so this flavonoid will be detected by the rhizobiums. Okay, rhizobiums ni apa? Rhizobiums adalah merujuk pada sekumpulan bakteria tanah yang boleh convert the atmospheric nitrogen into ammonium. Okay, so when the rhizobiums detect the presence of flavonoid, this flavonoid will tell the rhizobiums that they are leguminous plant berhampiran. Okay, dia ada pokok legumes yang berhampiran, yang mana rhizobium ni boleh migrate toward the root hair. Okay, bila rhizobiums detect the presence of flavonoid, it will move from lower concentrations of flavonoid to higher concentrations of flavonoid. Okay, so higher concentration kat mana? Dekat kawasan yang dirilis lah oleh root hair tu tadi. So dia boleh migrate exactly toward the root hair. The flavonoid will also, the flavonoid released by the plant will not serve as a chemical signal to tell the rhizobiums to migrate towards plant root hair, but the flavonoid also will serve as a nodulations, will activate the nodulations genes in rhizobiums. Okay, rhizobiums ni dia akan absorb flavonoid and then dia akan activate dia punya nodulations genes. The nodulations genes ni akan active and produce certain chemicals. Okay, kita panggil lipocytoproteins, LPO. Okay, so the LPO ni adalah chemical signal daripada rhizobiums kepada tumbuhan. Okay, first tadi pokok dia nak bercakap atau pokok nak berkomunikate dengan rhizobiums ni, dia akan hasilkan chemical, dia hasilkan flavonoid. Okay, sebagai mechanisms of how rhizobiums tell the plants that they are nearby, the rhizobiums will secrete node factor, okay, in the form of lipocytopolysaccharide, lipocytoproteins, LCP, okay, like lipocytopolysaccharide. These chemicals, they akan serve as a chemical signal toward the plants. Okay, untuk bagi tahu tumbuhan, rhizobiums ni akan penetrate into root nodules, okay, and then akan hasilkan nodules. Okay, apa itu nodules? Nodules adalah bahagian akar dekat legumes tu yang membengkak macam bentuk bulat-bulat ke kacang. Okay, sebenarnya tak ada kacang dalam tu, tapi ada microbes. Okay, rhizobiums yang dah membiak. So dalam nodules ni lah yang tempat untuk convert the atmospheric nitrogens into nitrates or ammonia. Okay, so these whole mechanisms or whole interactions can be increased, can be optimized if we supply cobalt to this plant. Okay, how this cobalt can optimize or increase the symbiotic interactions, kita tak tahu lagi dia punya exact mechanisms. Okay. Seterusnya adalah selenium yang terakhir. Kumpat ya. Seleniums can enhance certain yield of plant, can increase yield of a certain plant, and it also can increase abiotics resistance of certain species of plant also. Okay, so if you look closely, all these beneficial element can enhance plant resistance toward abiotic and biotic stress. Okay, kalau awak cakap apa fungsi seleniums, aluminiums ataupun silicons, awak jawab to enhance abiotic and biotic stress, saya terima. Okay, so abiotic dengan biotic stress tu the detail dia ada lagi, tapi kalau awak tak mention secara detail siapa dia pun saya terima juga. Okay, so how selenium can increase the yield quality? In some countries around the world, selenium deficiency in a diet is a common problem. Okay? To counteract this problem, selenium compounds have been used to increase the selenium content in edible part of crops through foliar spray or base applications. Okay, for example, selenium has a positive effect on accumulations of starch in potato. Okay. Kalau awak perasan kat pasar raya ada banyak jenis kentang kan, tapi semua kentang ni tak sesuai nak jadikan potato chips. Okay, so apa kriteria kentang yang sesuai untuk hasilkan potato chips ni? Kentang yang ada tinggi kandungan starch. Okay, kalau kentang tu mengandungi high starch, dia lebih rangup bila kita goreng. Okay, kalau dia tak ada starch yang banyak, dia tak jadi rangup. Okay, so kentang biasanya dalam pasaran dunia, kentang biasanya digunakan, kebanyakannya lah digunakan untuk sebagai our diet, okay, especially to produce potato chips, okay, ataupun french fries. Okay, so the quality ataupun kerangupan potato chips ataupun french fries ni bergantung pada starch content tu tadi. Semakin tinggi dia semakin rangup. Dan starch contents in potato can be increased if we supply the potatoes with selenium. Okay. Apart from that, seleniums also have shown to counteract various abiotic stress induced in plants such as cold, drought, high intensity of radiation, salinity, and also heavy metals. Okay. Ada lagi aluminiums. Okay. So the last ones, aluminiums. What is the positive effect of aluminiums to the plant? Aluminium is a major constituent of most soil, but it is not required for plant growth. Aluminium's ion 3+ have a strong tendency to hydrolyze and split the water molecules into hydrogen ions and also hydroxyl ions. Okay, and this process will cause acidifications of soil. Okay, sebab apa? The concentrations of hydrogen ion will increase. Aluminium is toxic to the plant because aluminium can disrupt calcium homeostasis. Apart from that, aluminium can also interfering with phosphorus metabolisms, and aluminium also can cause oxidative stress or oxidative effect. Kita tengok dekat sini, aluminium kebanyakannya can cause adverse effect to the plants. So how, kalau dia menghasilkan adverse effect to the plants, how it can be beneficial to the plants? Aluminium can be beneficial to the plants by inhibiting pathogen attack and also can enhance plant growth. Okay, there are two mechanisms of how aluminium can be beneficial to the plant. First, it can inhibit plant pathogen, and the second one, it can enhance plant growth. So how aluminium can inhibit pathogen attack? Aluminium can be toxic to pathogenic microorganisms, thus helping plant to avoid the disease. For example, spore germinations and vegetative growth of the black rod pathogens, Tierviopsis versicolor, were inhibited by aluminiums at concentrations of 350 micromolar at pH 5. Apart from that, there's another species of uh, plant pathogens that can be inhibited by aluminiums. So the plant pathogen is Phytophthora. Okay, Phytophthora dia boleh menyebabkan penyakit in a wide range of plant. Okay, banyak pokok uh, boleh diserang oleh Phytophthora ni. Okay, dekat pokok durian, dekat pokok rambutan. So Phytophthora adalah pathogenic fungal. Okay. So when plant being attacked by this Phytophthora, plant tu kita akan tengok dia, kita panggil kanker pokok. Okay. Kanker pokok. Kanker pokok tu disebabkan oleh Phytophthora. Okay. Pathogens Phytophthora ni juga dia punya resistance to aluminium sangat rendah. Okay. Dia boleh dicegah dia punya growth when we apply aluminiums at 150 micromolar. Okay. So these two pathogens are very sensitive toward aluminiums. Okay. Well, plant also are very sensitive to aluminiums, but the sensitivity of these two pathogens are more compared to the plants. Okay. So salah satu cara kita nak menghapuskan black root rot pathogens ni adalah dengan kita apply aluminium, tapi dekat lower concentrations lah. Sebab kalau ke high concentrations, it will be also be toxic to the plant. Okay. So sama juga macam Phytophthora infections ni tadi. Kita macam mana kita nak merawat Phytophthora infections ni, kita dengan apply aluminiums at a certain concentration. Okay. So itu adalah bagaimana aluminiums can be used as control agents to prevent the infections of Phytophthora, canker disease in plant, and also black root rot in plant. Okay. Apart from that, aluminiums also can increase plant growth, okay, especially in Melastoma malabraticums ataupun pokok senduduk. Okay. Jenis-jenis pokok senduduk ni kalau kita apply aluminium, dia punya growth akan meningkat. Okay. Why? Because in soil, aluminiums can react with phosphate to form aluminium phosphate. Okay. So these Melastoma malabraticums, dekat dia punya akar, in their roots, they have a certain proteins that can uptake the aluminium and phosphorus complex. Okay. So bila Melastoma malabraticums dia absorbs aluminiums, it indirectly will absorb also phosphorus. Okay, phosphate. Okay, we know phosphate adalah macronutrient. Bila kita apply more phosphate pada tumbuhan, dia punya growth akan increase because macronutrients, primary macronutrients especially limiting factor in plant growth. Okay, so bila kita tambah aluminium dekat tanah tu, aluminium ni apa terjadi, dia akan react with phosphate. Okay. Phosphate biasanya dekat tanah dia very reactive. Okay. Macam saya cakap tadi, untuk fertigasi kita akan hasilkan baja A dengan baja B. Sebab apa? Kita nak asingkan ions dengan calcium daripada phosphate. Sebab apa? Phosphate ni sangat reaktif. Kalau kita campur dengan calcium, dia akan react dengan calcium, menghasilkan calcium phosphate. Kalau kita campur dengan ions, dia akan react with ions dan dia menghasilkan iron phosphate. Okay. Phosphorus dekat tanah ni kebanyakan dia fixed with minerals and become unavailable for plant absorptions. Okay. So when we apply aluminiums, these aluminiums will scavenge the phosphate that initially bind to minerals. Okay. and then it will release the phosphate from the mineral in soil and bind to form aluminium phosphate. Okay, so this species of plant has unique protein transport in their root membranes. Okay, so this protein transport can absorb aluminium phosphorus complex. Okay, so sebab tu dia punya growth semakin enhance bila kita bagi aluminium. Sebab apa? Aluminium tu akan scavenge phosphate dekat tanah. Lepas tu that phosphate dia akan absorb. Okay, so plant akan dapat lebih phosphate kalau kita apply juga aluminium. Okay, itu untuk pokok Melastoma malabaticums. Dekat pokok in tea also we can observe the same phenomenon if we apply this plant with low amount low concentrations of aluminium. Okay, this is the summarizations or conclusions of how sodiums, aluminium, seleniums, silicon, and cobalt can increase, can give beneficial effect to the plant growth. Okay. For example, aluminium enhance herbivore defense. It can prevent iron toxicity. It can also promote phosphorus uptake. Okay. Apart from that, seleniums can enhance pathogens and herbivore defense. It prevents phosphorus toxicity and also can increase putative oxidant in plant. Okay, so boleh baca lah dengan lain beneficial effect of sodium, cobalt and also silicon. Okay, any questions? Ada soalan tak?
Tak ada.
Tak ada.
Rizal okay? Semua tak ada ya? Ke awak mengantuk ya? Dah pukul 4 lebih. Syairin, okay Syairin?
Okey.
Okey, doktor.
Okay ya. Hafizan okay?
Okey doktor.
Okay. So awak ingat beneficial microbe pula. Beneficial element adalah berbeza compared to essential elements. Essential elements required by all species of plant. Okay, there are 4 characteristic. Kenapa certain elements classify or define as essential elements. Beneficial elements is not required by all species of plant. Okay, so in fact kalau macam kita tahu silikon beneficial to padi. Okay, kalau kita tak letak silikon, padi still boleh tumbuh dengan sihat. Okay, tapi kalau dia ada attacks by fungal pathogens, dia punya resistance lebih rendah lah compared to padi yang kita supply with silicon. Okay, as I said earlier, if you observe in detail or baca dengan lebih lanjut, all these element can enhance plant growth by enhance plant resistance toward abiotic dan juga biotic stress. Okay. Any questions? Tak ada ya? So if there is no questions, I would like to end our lecture sessions here. Next week kita adalah kelas yang terakhir. Okay, minggu ke-7 sebelum minggu ke-8. Lepas minggu ke-7 ada break ke? Bila ya break? Midterm breaks kalau awak ingat?
Lepas minggu ke-8.
Oh, lepas minggu ke-8. Maksudnya sebelum kita ada exam dulu baru awak ada ni lah cuti ya. Okay. So minggu ke-7 our last lecture. Lepas tu minggu ke-8 awak akan ada midterms masa lab sessions. Okay, kita buat midterm masa lab. Midterm sama ada conducted online ataupun face to face, saya tak boleh bagi kata putus lagi. I'm not decide yet. Okay, berarti kuliah kena bagi guideline dulu macam mana how to conduct midterms. After we have a clear guideline from kuliah, saya akan terangkanlah dekat awak macam mana kita nak buat midterms kita. Okay, so ada apa-apa soalan? Tak ada ya?
Tak ada,
Saya tak ada ya? Siapa tadi ya? Alia. Alia ada Alia?
Ada doktor.
Awak tadi kata yang nak buat hidroponik tu subjek apa ya?
Usrah in action.
Oh, sebab Research Management Center dia ada provide grant untuk aktiviti-aktiviti macam ni. Okay, tapi tak apalah, nanti saya discuss dengan detail lagi lah. Kalau awak berminat nak buat tu, nanti kita discuss lagi lah. Okay. Selain tu tak ada apa-apa. I would like to thank to all of you for your times and your attentions. See you next week. Until that, Assalamualaikum. Selamat berpuasa. Have a nice day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you doktor.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, doktor.
Thank you doktor. Selamat berpuasa doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Okay, sama-sama. Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.